Well, I think we're about ready, aren't we, friends? Welcome to the Nebraska Storytelling Festival. My name is Dwayne Taylor. I'll serve as your master of ceremonies tonight, and I'm telling you, this is gonna be one for the books. It's so wonderful to sit and be able to listen to real stories from your neighbors and community members and folks from across the state, and tonight will be no different. It's gonna bring your heart a lot of joy, so I ask that you open up, allow yourself to feel some real emotions, whether they be a little bit of sadness, reminiscing, nostalgia, pure joy. We want you to feel it all here. But before we get started, I would like to introduce our mayor, Lyrian Gaylor Baird, who has heard plenty of stories from across our community. Give her a round of applause as she comes to the stage.
Thank you so much, Dwayne, and good evening, everyone. It's wonderful to be part of the welcoming crew here tonight at Nebraska's 4th Storytelling Festival. I want to say thank you all for coming to hear these stories. Thank you to our storytellers for sharing part of your life with us tonight. And I also just thought I'd take a point of privilege and tell you a quick story, which is that just a few months ago, I was in City Council chambers because we were having a public hearing on this new plan for a library. Yeah, Randy, I'm going there. And the council chair asked if I would come forward and give my testimony, because I don't usually testify, but I wanted to testify my support for our new library, because it's all about stories at the library. And as I came from a few rows back, someone else beat me to the podium, and I told the council chair, we'll let the unofficial mayor testify first. You guys know who the unofficial mayor of Lincoln is. Randy Bretz, thank you for all you do. Thank you, Randy, for organizing this event and to all the other folks who've helped you. And I think I'm getting booted off the stage, but good luck tonight. I'm excited to hear your stories.
I'm going to have to tell you something. I wasn't planning to do this, but gosh, 2 months ago, I sent the paperwork in to invite her to speak tonight, and I completely forgot that she was coming. So I apologize right here in front of all these people.
It's all good. Thank you all, and enjoy the show.
This year's theme is Lost and Found. And it's fascinating how all of our storytellers have somehow spun this theme into their tales, so please listen for how each of them have been lost and are found. And now the magic begins with the show. Are you ready? Let's begin with our first storyteller this evening, Brandy Benson. Brandy's career began in journalism, where she discovered a passion for listening to people's stories and capturing their voices. She spent the last 13 years in education and now works for Lincoln Public Schools. Shout out LPS. Brandy has never before stepped on a stage to tell a story, but carries a quiet hope that all storytelling and listening can change the world. Tonight, we've asked our storytellers to give us a fun fact that we'd like to share with you. Brandy's is her feet are 2 different sizes. And I'm just curious as how far the numbers are apart. Welcome Brandy to the stage with a story called 8 Precious Lives.
I get to go first. I'm naturally an observer. I like to watch what's going on around me, and I always want to help. I always think I should help. In this past May, I may have taken it a little bit too far. To give you some context and set the scene, our story is going to take place between 40th and Pine Lake and 32nd and Pine Lake. And there's a pond in between there. If you're not a Lincoln native, it doesn't matter. Just picture a 300-yard strip of road with a pond at the end of it. So I'm driving to school one morning. I'm on the phone with my friend Sapphire, who's in the front row. Hey, buddy. And we're just talking about life. I'm driving uphill, up towards Hacienda Real, and I'm in the far right lane. And in the left lane, there's a car that stopped, even though the traffic light is green. I thought, well, that's weird, but not uncommon. And as I drive up a little closer, I notice that there is a woman in the passenger side with her arm out the window going like this. And there are crows that are swooping down into the road. Again, not uncommon. I thought maybe there was some roadkill, right? But as I inch up a little further, I see that there are 3 full-grown geese and 5 little baby goslings, right? And not the ones with feathers yet. They're still like soft, the little soft ones. And they're trying to get across all 4 lanes of traffic. And every time they go this way, those crows swoop down and send them back that way. Every time they go that way, the crows swoop back down and send them back that way. And they cannot get across the road. So I said to Sapphire, hold on a second. I got to get out and save some geese. Put my car in park, get out of the car, start walking towards them. And the lady in the car next to me says, ma'am, be careful. They're geese. They'll attack you. I said, ma'am, I got this. And I continued walking. In my head, I was thinking, I do not got this. Does anybody know how to move geese? Anybody? Okay, I'm gonna teach you, okay? So all I can think to myself is I've gotta get my hands out as far from my body as I can. Okay, let's see it. Yep, and then I do the next best thing I can think of, and I go, get. Let's hear it. Yes, okay. So I continue to get these geese all the way across all 4 lanes of traffic. I get them all the way across. They get up on the sidewalk. They're up on the grass. The cars that are parked behind our cars are honking. They're cheering. We've saved these geese. And I turn to come back to my car, and they follow me back into the road. And this is on a hill, right? If you know this area, all I can think is someone's gonna pop over that hill, and they're gonna hit all 8 of these geese. So I make a split-second decision. I will get them all the way down to that pond. So we take off. Get. And I start thinking, what if somebody pops over this hill and they hit me? But fear not, folks. An SUV pulled up behind me and turned on their hazard lights. And a few minutes later, a police cruiser pulled up behind them and turned on their emergency lights. So if you can picture this, I'm getting these geese all the way down Pine Lake with an SUV with its hazard lights and a police escort with the emergency lights. Yeah. We keep going, and like I said, I measured it last night to be sure. It's 300 yards. 300 yards, 3 football fields. I'm getting these geese. I get down, things are going great, and the lady who was so worried about me getting attacked by the geese yells down, ma'am, your car, because my car was still stalled in the road. And me, being Nebraska nice, I shout back to her, can you please get in and just move it around the corner for me? And so she does. And I continue to get my geese down the road. I finally get them all the way down to the pond, and I think, well, I gotta get back to my car now. So I turn to the complete stranger in the SUV, and I say, hey, can you give me a ride back to my car? She's also Nebraska nice. She says, yeah, hop in. So she takes me back up. We find my car, relax, it was fine. And I get in and decide I probably better call Sapphire back. So I go to look for my phone. It's gone. My phone has been stolen. My phone is missing. I just did this amazing deed. I saved 8 lives. And the karma from the geese gods is that someone has stolen my phone. And I think, well, I gotta drive to school now and call the cops and tell them my phone's been stolen. Put my car in reverse as I start to back out in my rear view mirror. I see the lady who'd moved my car frantically waving her arms, and in her hand, my phone. You see, she also wanted it to not get stolen, and so she decided to walk it down to me to the pond. But when she almost got there, I got in the car with a complete stranger and came all the way back up. So she ran all the way back up to deliver me my phone. And she's huffing and puffing, and she says to me, you might want to call your friend Sapphire back. She's called about 8 times now. I said, okay, I'll call her back. But then my phone rings, and it's an unknown number. I answer the phone. Hello? Is this Brandy Benson? Why, yes, it is. Hey, Brandy, this is the Lincoln Police Department. Your friend Sapphire called. She said you got hit by a car and their car's been stolen. You see, all Sapphire had heard was me get out of my car screaming, get! Before it went dead silent, someone got in, said, I don't know how to drive this thing, and ended the call. I got my phone, I got my car, we saved the geese, I went to school. Now, I would like to tell you this is an uncommon occurrence in my day-to-day, but anyone in this audience who knows me knows that stuff like this happens all the time. I always want to help, I'm always observing, I always think I need to help. But if there's anything at all I want you to take away from this story tonight, it's that if you ever find yourself in a situation where you see some geese in the road, do it with me. Get. Thank you.
Let's hear it for Brandy Benson. I'll tell you what, that's a sentence I've never heard anyone utter. Hold on, I'll be right back. I gotta go save some geese. I'm glad that you did save those geese. Now we welcome our next storyteller, Keith Dietrich. A Nebraska farmer and storyteller, Keith draws inspiration and reflection from the rhythms of farming and the vistas of the Nebraska landscape. Several books and years of writing have sharpened his ability to find insight in his storytelling. Here's the fun fact. Keith was a twin born on April Fool's Day. His mom had no idea until the day before. I know, and I promise you're not seeing double, but please give a big old round of applause for Keith with this story called Into the Night.
Well, I'd say my fraternal sister got the looks and I got the height. Wow, this morning I was scooping corn in a bin in northeast Nebraska. So here I am tonight, here, wow. I don't know if any of you have ever thought about writing a book, but if you do, you need an editor. And I guarantee you'll get mad at that editor. My editors told me I needed to flesh the story out more, that the little draft of the Harm Dog book with humorous stories needed more substance, needed more about the characters around the dog. Well, I just wanted to write about the dog. And I certainly didn't want to write about my story. So I stopped writing. And I stewed on it, and for a year, until June of 2017, that I decided that maybe, just maybe, I should do it. So I'd do it at my favorite place. I'd start on it again at my favorite place in all of Nebraska, the Snake River Canyon in far northern Nebraska outside of Valentine. That morning, I pulled out my laptop and a cup of coffee and a clear blue sky with the sound of the falls in the backdrop. I started writing, and surprisingly, I fell into the story. I lost myself in the story. It was 2 o'clock before I found my way back out. Much later than I had planned, and I had scheduled a long trip in the canyon, a trek for the day. But it was a nice summer day, there was little chance of rain, and I would be okay. So I headed down below the crossing, to the crossing below the falls, made my way across, walked clear down to the far end of the ranch, to the end of the river there, and there I stood on a 500-foot precipice overlooking a breathtaking, spectacular scene of the Snake River winding through pine trees, where I recall eagles soaring and vultures circling all at the same time. I climbed down quickly, and soon I found myself in the water, casting, and I caught that beautiful rainbow trout that I'd been dreaming about. I quickly snapped a picture from my back pocket, my phone in my back pocket, I released the fish into its lovely, crystal clear, sparkling water domain, and then continued hiking. In short, the day changed. A cloud bank came up. It got late. I lost my phone. I couldn't find my way back to the crossing. I wandered for hours, and I just couldn't find it. At the same time, I knew later that there was a lost bull 100 miles to the east, a black one as dark as night, on the far side of a river away from his herd as well. I panicked. I knew that I was headed into the night, about dark, on the far side of the canyon with no gear, a storm coming, and a little water left. I had drank the last drink a while ago. Luckily, a few good Samaritans I happened to hear across the canyon. They guided me down across. I found my way out, and soon, as the clouds passed and the storm passed, I found myself at the cabins with the sun going down to the west, eating cherry pie and ice cream, marveling at today, how it had turned out, how arduous it was, and here I was, everything was fine. They suggested that I stay the night, but I had other ideas. So I pulled out about dark onto the highway for my 3.5-hour drive. I strapped my seatbelt on, set my cruise control, and told myself I should be more careful next time. I lost myself in my thoughts. I thought about my daughter and my wife and the travels in this same pickup to equestrian events all over, with my little girl sitting in the back, dreaming of where we'd go the next time. I kept driving. I kept thinking. I didn't turn on the radio on even. Somewhere east of Valentine, something was far ahead. I hit my brakes, slammed on my brakes, and missed the deer that crossed. And then, as I saw lightning to the east, I kept driving. About an hour away from home, I realized I was reaching the storm. There was raindrops hitting my windshield. I was still lost in my thoughts. And then, out of the darkness and the fog of my thoughts, I saw a cattle truck veering into my lane and tipping over all at the same time. He had found the black bull with his bumper crossing the highway. We were both going full speed. I had no time to hit the brakes. I realized I was again heading into the night, and all was lost this time. But I awoke to a sublime, nearly beautiful scene of sparkling crystal glass all around me, a little bit of moonlight, drops of rain hitting my dash, the lowing of cattle. And then I thought, and now this? I could not move. I was completely trapped. A passerby came. First, the young truck driver came to my door, profusely apologizing, saying he'd found the bull with his bumper, and there was nothing he could do. He kept saying he needed to call his father, but he was bleeding so bad he couldn't see and had to lay down. He apologized and apologized. A passerby came by, and I called out my home phone number, the lucky 4 7s at the end. She reached my daughter. And then the calmest voice I ever heard was at my door saying, "Keith, we're going to get you out of here." The sheriff told me later that the truck was damaged so bad, the mess so bad, he just called in a fatality. There was flesh and blood everywhere. The cattle truck was full. Half of them died. He said things like, "Someone shear this door off then." And I could hear the shearing of the door. And then I heard the porter power quit. He called out for another. It resumed. He said, "Keith, stay with us." I wondered about that. He kept working. I saw a young man holding a cow down with a headlock on her beside my door, struggling. I called out for morphine. No one answered. He kept working, and he asked me the make and model of the vehicle as he tried to push the dash away from my body. I feared that it would spring back, and it did. He pushed again, kept trying, and he pushed it away. And then they strapped a body wrap around me, a vest with handholds all over. And it seemed like out of the heavens, hands came down out of the heavens and reached and started preparing to pull me out as the calm voice said, "Keith, I'm sorry we have to do this. Scream if you wish." In the ambulance, quite soon, the bright lights were shining in my eyes. I could discern there was a young paramedic beside me. She told me later that I started reciting poetry to her. At Zio's, we all gathered to dine and toast well, 3 cultures combined before the big day. I was trying to release myself from the pain. It was a story about my daughter and me at an equestrian event I rode alongside of the road late in the night. Next came hours of hospitals, ambulances, surgeries, a long trip to Omaha in an ambulance, and humanity everywhere, kindness and humanity everywhere, working to save me. The doctor, whose nurses said fixes the unfixable, worked on me. The impact was so bad that hardly anyone survives the G-forces involved. But I did, and they fixed me, and they helped me. The nurse in the middle of the night who caught my eye in one of the worst stages I was in and took my pain and accepted my pain as hers, I'll never forget. Weeks and weeks later, I was able to move in a walker, and my wife took me back to the scene. And there I was, standing at the same spot along the highway, quiet highway. It was about sundown almost by the time we got there. And I looked down at my feet, and there, the only thing left was the emblem off the front of my pickup, nearly unscathed. Probably into a cow's body, protected. I looked to the north, far to the north, and there was a bull standing over a single wire fence, looking at cows across the highway. Him too, hoping to make a crossing. A few cars whizzed by, and I thought to myself, and they too into the night. Oh, epilogue, I guess, the end of the story is that the dog book got done. And my story continues. Ace, the greatest farm dog, is gone now, but it's okay. The fences were fixed. And the editors, maybe they were talking about my story. That after 56 years, my story wasn't complete yet. It continues. My story continues, though. And I'm very grateful. Thank you.
Let's keep that round of applause going for Keith Dietrich. Whew. We said it earlier. The theme is lost and found. You're going to hear that in so many of these stories. And allow yourself to experience all of the emotions all at once. I would like to make a note about one point of all of our experiences. If you take a second to check your phone, just make sure that it's on silent or that it's off, low vibrate if that's a thing that you really need to do. But just check your device so that it doesn't go off during our stories here. Our next storyteller is Jeffrey McCabe. For 41 years, Jeffrey worked in public education as a teacher, a career where he honed his storytelling talents, discovered a sense of humor and the right timing, and found that stories could bring fun, context, and clarity to his classroom. Fun fact about Jeffrey, in college, he switched from vertebrate paleontology to teaching woodworking. Because apparently he discovered how hot, slow, and boring dinosaur hunting would be. Could have been Indiana Jones, but tonight he's a storyteller with a tale titled Circus Dentist. Let's hear it for Jeffrey McCabe.
Everything that you do and everything in your early life affects your future life. Seems obvious, where you grow up, who your parents are, but probably nothing makes more difference than the decisions you make, the stuff you decide to do, the people you hang out with. Such is the case in 1903 when my grandfather and his cousin Earl, who were 15 and 16 years old respectively, decided it would be a good idea to take their trumpet playing skills and run away with the circus. They were both skilled trumpet players, and when the Campbell Brothers Circus came to Lincoln, they went back and talked to the guys in the band, found out they could use a couple more trumpet players, and they thought that'd be a good idea, and they left for that season and on into the next season and toured around with the Campbell Brothers Circus Band. They came back to Lincoln, finished school, and Earl was a talented musician, played piano, and he had compositions. He was a ragtime piano player, and he had stuff published in New York City, the Streamer's Rag, the Corn Tassel Rag. My grandfather played trumpet his whole life. He kept playing trumpet. They never lost their zest for entertainment, though, too. Their love of that time was so profound. They were one of the founding members of the Lincoln Musicians Union, and they used to run from theater to theater to play in the orchestra pit for silent movies and vaudeville. And they brought along younger brother Dewey, my Uncle Dewey, and he was a trumpet player too, so they would run and make extra money that way. Earl became a music teacher and a professional musician. My grandfather was working for the Railway Mail Express, which was a competitor to the United States Post Office at the time, and my great-grandfather, his father, said, "You really ought to be a professional. You ought to, do something else." And so he went to the Lincoln School of Dentistry, which was not associated with a university. It was on 13th and O approximately, and he went there, and in 1915 he graduated and became a dentist. Fast forward to the 1930s, 1936 approximately, and he comes home one day from his dental office at 12th and O in the Kresge building and says to my grandmother and my mother, "We're going to the circus." Well, he'd never lost his zest for the circus. My brother and I used to run around in the living room with our toy trumpets. He had his real trumpet. We did clown acts. We did marching to circus music. He took us to every circus that was in town, so it was no surprise when my mother was his only child that they would go to the circus. They go, "Well, we've already been to the circus the other day. It was great." He goes, "Yeah, but this time," he goes, "we're ringside seats, center ring, Ringling Brothers, Barnum and Bailey Circus as their guests." And they go, "Well, how did that happen? How could that possibly be?" He says, "Well, I was seeing patients this afternoon, and the receptionist came in and said, there are two gentlemen here from the Ringling Brothers Circus, and they are insistent on seeing circus dentist Dr. E.C. Marks." And he says, "Circus dentist?" They said, "Yes, they're from the Ringling Brothers Circus, and they're insisting on seeing you." He goes, "Well, do they have an appointment?" And she goes, "No, they don't, but they're very insistent." And he goes, "Well, put somebody in the recovery room and have the people wait in the waiting room, send them in." So these two guys come in. I've always heard this story. It's like, I assumed they were like big Goomba type guys, And they were carrying a suitcase. And so they take the suitcase, they come in, and they put it up on the countertop, and they click the latches, and the lid comes open, and out pops Clarence Chesterfield Howerton, 28 and a half inches tall, the smallest man in the world, better known as Major Mite. And he's got an abscessed tooth, and he is in agony. And they've put this guy in a suitcase in the in the circus grounds, which are a mile and a half away, and walked him through town so they could be discreet and secret. Because if you see this guy on the street, you're not going to pay to see him tonight. If you think he's sick, he might not perform at all. You're also not going to buy a ticket. So discretion and secrecy in the circus world is big time. So they probably keep track of, I found out, they keep track of a lawyer, a cop, a dentist, a doctor, a judge, anybody in every town they possibly have that's sympathetic to circus folk. And he was this person in Lincoln, Nebraska in like 1936. So I said, can you help him? And he goes, well, yeah, I can. So he injects him with Novocaine and pulls a tooth, packs it with cotton or whatever they had back then, and they put him back in the suitcase. And they latch it up and they walk him another mile and a half back to the circus grounds. And then my mom and my grandpa go, okay, of course we're going. So they go, and their ringside seats center ring, and Major Mite does his act, which was at that time usually, he was one of the biggest acts in the world at that. He either rides a miniature horse or he drives a miniature wagon scaled down with a miniature horse, and he drives the wagon, and that's his thing. So they're going, it's like, how could this possibly happen? I said, well, something from your past, some far off thing in 1903 comes back in 1936. The epilogue is that Major Mite was a big deal, and he did really well with his money, and he was very successful. And he was with the Ringling Brothers Circus from 1925 to 1945. And he went and met President Harding at the White House, and he did Marine recruitment, personal appearances, posters, and radio spots for the United States Marines in the 1930s. And he was briefly released from his contract with the Ringling Brothers Barnum and Bailey Circus to go to Hollywood in 1939 to be one of the 3 trumpet players welcoming the mayor of Munchkin City in The Wizard of Oz. He's one of the 3 trumpeters. So we've all seen him if we've ever seen The Wizard of Oz, because he goes, bah-bah. Anyway, so he was very successful. And he retired from public life and the show business in 1949, moved back to Oregon, where he was from, outlived all of his immediate family, and lived until 1975. That's my story.
I just can't stop thinking about what the wheels had to be like in 1930. You know, wheels these days, we try to make them a little vibration suppressive. They didn't care about no vibrations then. That poor guy was sitting in that suitcase having a hard time. Next up is Way of Life Wardlow. Way of Life, yeah, give a round of applause. Way of Life emerged from a childhood spent in the foster care system into a life facing a myriad of challenges. Today, he's discovered his voice and purpose, now serving as a poet, spoken word artist, musician, and speaker, using his platform to advocate for at-risk youth. Fun fact about Way of Life, he's not just a storyteller, he's famous for coming up with introductory and farewell terms. Let me give you a couple. When he's in agreement with somebody, he might say, super duper facts. And if someone asks how he's doing, the answer is good, great, godly, grooving, and getting it. Well, tonight he is getting it, telling a story of hope and promise, a story called More Than Meets the Eye. Give it up for Way of Life Wardlow.
How the heck did I get here? The only one not naked at the Nebraska Storytelling Festival. Oh my goodness. For sure. Another one of my terms. I'm gonna tell you a story about there's more than meets the eye. But first, I have some homework for you. Let me see your hands real quick. Turn them into a phone. You're gonna need that later. If you did not participate, we have a bunch of Scottish people led by Mel Gibson who will escort you out the room. So there's more than meets the eye. February 6, 2013, for some background. I was being escorted by Omaha's finest in the backseat of a squadron car on the way to the county jail. And at that moment, I handled that like any self-respecting man with a semblance of dignity would. Oh my God, oh, Mama. I was scared. Kevin Hart hadn't come out with the movie helping Will Ferrell get ready to go to prison, and so I didn't know really what to expect. I didn't know how to handle that, but I knew I couldn't show it, right? I even questioned if I was dying. I had all these shoulda, coulda, wouldas in my head, and I'm swiping left and swiping right like a dating site, and then I follow this one, and I'm like, yeah, this is a good idea. Then I'm like, I already made the decision, it's too late. So I got to the county jail, and then I thought, let me call my mom with the melodramatic message. Mama, you might not see your son for like at least 50 years and stuff. She's like, what happened? I couldn't tell her because it was still going on, right? But she understood. She understood. February to September 10th, 2013, that same year, I got sentenced to 14 to 20 years in prison. See, my sentence was a little bit wonky, right? I was there for charges related to robbery. I was hungry, whatever. We'll deal with it. 14 to 20 years, 9.5 years I would have to do to be eligible for parole, to be able to be free again. And that's where this story starts. See, August 25th, 2022, there was a little bit more than meets the eye that day, right? It wasn't just 3 days before my oldest son's baseball game where he wondered if I would be there. It wasn't just 10 days after my youngest son's 10th birthday where he was hoping that I would get out. It wasn't just 56 days before my 34th birthday, nor was it less than 2 months from an album being released from me while in prison. What a feat. This was the day that I was due to get out, to be free. And I don't know if anyone here has ever been in a parole board meeting, but it's like when you walk into a freezer and inside of that freezer it's a gender reveal party, right? Like you all know why you're there, and it's either you're gonna get this answer or that answer, and there's only a certain amount of people who know what the answer is. And I thought I had a real good chance at freedom, right? I had a hell of a resume, prison resume. But when I got in there, I didn't get the fairness, the impartiality, the unbiased. What I got was a bunch of scowls, disinterested, detached looks, as if to intimidate me, but they didn't know, yea, do I walk through the valley of Tecumseh State Prison Institution, where I've weathered the Mother Day ride, I shall fear no parole board member. And so the mist at my feet and the fog at my face, I raised my head above it, and they didn't like that. See, it was an ambush. They had already had a decision made about what they were going to do, and so they spent that whole time trying to justify the decision. And they weren't prepared for me to handle myself with the sense of dignity and integrity that I had cultivated over that 9.5 years. They weren't expecting someone to actually change. They didn't plan for that. And so I was told that I had a problem with authority because I tried to hold authority accountable the same way I was held accountable. Then I was asked to define authority. I said, what? Then, after everyone said what they said, the chairman said, you interview great, but I still have my concerns. And I'm like, what? I couldn't understand that. Like, look at me. Why am I not worthy of freedom, right? How can I have a perfect resume, have a whole team of support, and still be told that I am not fit to be free? Let's play a quick game real quick. Never have I ever sued for my freedom. Wait, opposite? I have sued for my freedom. I don't know the rules of that game, but what I'm trying to tell you is I might be the only one in here who has sued for their freedom, because that was the next step. After they denied me, I didn't know what to do. I had a bunch of support that was grieving the fact that I was still in there. I had a son who would be detached from why I missed his game. I had another son who would be depressed from why I was not free. I survived riots. I survived gang wars. I got out of the gang life. I had an album release. I had so many things that I created, and still suing them actually created more problems for me. So now we fast forward to February 21st, 2025, which was exactly 2.5 years later. That was the day I was released. And I didn't handle that day like anybody. I handled that day like Miley Cyrus would have. I came in like a wrecking ball. That was the day that I stepped out. And see, your first step in freedom, it has to be intentional. You have to know where you're going, because the wrong step may send you back. And I played Monopoly enough to know that I didn't want to skip, go to jail. I wanted my 200. And so that same day when I got out, I competed in the Omaha Poetry Slam. And out of the top 4, I was number 2. A month later, I actually won the Poetry Slam, but because of 3 seconds, I had a problem with time. The next up won. But then after that, I met Jewel Rogers, the state poet, and she invited me on the inaugural poetry excursion to New York. And so I not only got to be like Alicia Keys in New York. I can't sing. Don't get on me like that, right? But I was in the subways. I was through all the boroughs. I'm like, I just got out of prison, serving 12 years, 15 days, 4,395 new horizons, 144 and a half new moons, 113,940,260 breaths in one spot. I knew myself. And I went to not only speak and perform at a gala, not only get recruited by Nebraska Writers Collective to be a part of their organization, to go back into prison to help the people right where I came from. Like, that's a hell of a turnaround. Like, I also kind of created my own LLC, and I got selected to Nebraska Storytelling Festival. And I was told that the theme was about being lost and found, and the festival was 2 days after my 37th birthday. And I was like, oh my God, there's so many signs. And I thought back, May 30th, when I was done with parole, I saw the chairman. I said, how you doing? She says, hello. I said, I'm doing good. She's like, that's great. I said, I just got off of parole today. She's like, oh, that's great. I said, it's been a long journey. She was the one who never gave me my vote to be released. Not at any point in time. 3 different times when I saw them. And so that phone I told y'all about, I want y'all to bring that up. 8 months I've been free. I want y'all to call the parole board and say, hey, yo, I met Way of Life. I just want to let you know, I know we're not all perfect, but I'm just going to drop a little jewels for you, because he's not the only one out here doing what he's doing. There's more than meets the eye. Thank you.
Let's hear it for Way of Life. After our show, you're going to be able to meet our speakers and hang out and talk to them. We need that phone number, my guy. We need the phone number that we call, right? Our storyteller rounding out our first half of the program is none other than Marissa Gill. Marissa has been a writer since high school and a performer since college. She lives in Lincoln with her fiancé and her 10-year-old son, Griffin, and 2 soon-to-be stepchildren. She says she celebrates weirdness and advocates for justice, compassion, and kindness. Here's her fun fact. She's missing 10 adult teeth because she had baby teeth in Baby teeth in her mouth. I just had to make sure I was reading this right. Baby teeth in her mouth until she was 37 years old. My jaw dropped too. But tonight, her teeth don't matter because she's bringing us a story called A Funny Thing Happened on the Way to Intermission. Let's hear it for Marissa Gill.
Parenting is crazy, right? In the decade that I have been parenting my son, I have had to ask questions like, why is your shoe in the toilet? And okay, exactly how many of those magnets did you swallow? He is also the reason that I have very truthfully uttered the sentence, oh, we would have made it to intermission if I just made him wear pants. And that's the story I'm gonna tell you tonight. See, for me, parenting feels like one of those cooking reality shows, you know, where they give you these mystery ingredients and then you have like 10 minutes to make a 5-course meal, except with parenting, it's like no one's ever cooked anything ever before and everything's on fire. But when it came my turn to be on that show, the judges came up to me and they were like, all right, your ingredients are a live octopus, an old shoe, and some motor oil. Bon appetit. See, because my son Griffin is 10. He's insanely intelligent. He is unbelievably hilarious. He's almost constantly singing, and he is delightfully weird. He is also the perfect blend of autism and ADHD and a few other things mixed in, which when you all boil it down means that his mind and his body are in near constant motion. And that motion is often in two diametrically opposed directions. So it's my job as his parent to kind of monitor everything that's coming in and out, right? If we go back to the cooking, it's like everything that goes in the pot, I gotta make sure it's right. Because I know that if you add just a teaspoon of loud noises, and then maybe a smattering of unexpected changes to the plan, boom, you go from making a lava cake to making one of those science fair experiment volcanoes that's just like exploding everywhere. It's risky business. And sometimes it can be hard for us to find recipes that we both enjoy. So if we go back to 2020, Griffin is 5, and we are locked in the house because of the pandemic. Now, should a 5-year-old boy know every single word to Hamilton the musical? Oh, probably not. But mine did, because he loved it. And I loved it, and we watched it 100 times. He knew all the words to the songs, and he danced along with the Schuyler sisters, and he loved all the canons. And so it was just something that we could share together and enjoy. So a few years later, when that same Hamilton the musical was coming to our local theater for a live performance, I became like mad scientist chef mom, and I'm like, what can I mix together to make this possible? Because I don't want him to miss out on key moments and memories just because I don't know how to season the chili, you know what I mean? So I look at everything that's coming into this. We've got the live octopus of this giant crowd of people. And then we've got the old shoe of like, he has to sit in one place for an extended period of time. And then the motor oil of the whole thing is that this performance is actually the night before school starts for the year. And I'm thinking even Gordon Ramsay can't make something good out of this. But I have this feeling, like it could be one of those meals that you remember for a lifetime. So I persist. I do a lot of taste testing, experimenting, right? And I think I get just the right mixture of pre-planning and time management and maternal instinct to get us to the holy land of intermission. But of course, the world wants to add its own ingredients to my meticulously crafted and perfectly pre-proportioned meal. So throw in some bay leaves from the valets because they only take cash. So now I gotta run and find an ATM at the last minute, then dump in some, 2 cups of tomato sauce because for some reason my child gets a bloody nose as we walk in the building. And then I'm just trying to add a little flavor, a little salt at the end, and the top just comes right off of that thing because for the first time in his little life, he has no interest in a snack. So now we are there early with nothing to do, and I'm like, this isn't even gonna be edible at this point. But I work my mama magic. I mix everything together, and I get us to the main course. Then as the spotlight goes up and the actors come out on the stage, I'm just staring over at him. And as those first few notes echo in the building, his face lights up like a freaking firecracker. He's just like, ah. And at the end of that first song, he's clapping so hard, I think he's gonna bruise his poor little palms. And I've got tears in my eyes because I'm like, yes, we made it happen. He's eating it up. This is great. And I sit back and relax, and he's just loving the rotating stage, and every time the cannons go boom, he's just like, oh man, and it's great. But as with all recipes, you have to pay attention to how long you leave them on the burner. Now, what's the burner in this case? That would be velvet seat cushions. Now, a luxury for many, but for my child's exposed skin, because of his shorts, they were our undoing. His legs got itchy, he couldn't sit still, and so while poor Eliza was singing somewhere 3 or 4 numbers before intermission, we had to hightail it out of there. Now, I learned a lot that night. First of all, long pants are a required wardrobe element if I ever take my son to the theater, which I have since, and we have made it to intermission. Thank you very much. But also, I learned once again that creating these gourmet moments for my child, no matter how crazy the ingredients or ridiculous the recipes, will always be the most satisfying thing I can ever do.
Can we get a round of applause for all of our storytellers from part 1? Phenomenal. Okay, so at this point, we're gonna do an intermission. I say, let's give it like 20 minutes, so back at 8:22. There is a pianist here. This is Kay Byers. Can we give Kay a round of applause, please? A phenomenal job bringing us on in. You'll hear her lovely notes throughout, but let's take 20 minutes. I'd like to take a moment and just remind you all about the mission for the Nebraska Storytelling Festival. Giving our people, the people of our state, a stage to share their stories, understanding that our tales help us understand who we are, celebrate the diversity and commonality of human experience, give meaning to our struggles, bring us together, and empower humans as well as community connections. We have found that there are other Nebraska organizations with a similar mission, and we would like to tell you about one of them, Global Journeys, New Nebraskan Stories. This is a book of first-person essays from newcomers in our community. In this project, facilitated by the Lincoln-Lancaster County Welcoming Plan, the University of Nebraska Press, and the Cultural Centers of Lincoln, we can see and free the tenacity, heart, and resilience of new Nebraskans. Please watch for this wonderful book of stories. Can we get a round of applause for Global Journeys? We are so thankful to be able to share those stories here in this state and in our city. But right now we're sharing stories on this stage right here at the Nebraska Storytelling Festival. Our first storyteller back after intermission is none other than Dale Johnson. A Lincoln radio personality for more than 40 years, Dale has faced life's challenges with courage and perspective. In August, he was inducted into the Nebraska Broadcaster Association's Hall of Fame. Okay, so here's the fun fact. Believe it or not, Dale says he was actually kicked out of Canada on a motorcycle trip with a good friend. And I've kind of noticed that we have a lot of good friends that are of the storyteller. Sapphire, are you still here with Sapphire? Yeah, Sapphire's here. And so Dale gets kicked out of Canada with Dave. Dave, where are you at? Is Dave? Look, there's Dave. He gets kicked out of Canada with Dave. We have all the supporting characters in the building. They were on the western shore of Lake Superior, and they decided to venture north into Canada to take a few pictures. Like, who wouldn't? And it was the June of 2021. That's the shadow of COVID, if you're not aware. And when they tried to come back into this country, border guards declared that they had entered the country illegally. They were detained, processed through immigration, and eventually escorted back into the United States. And boy, am I glad that Dale Johnson made it back to Nebraska. Let's give him a round of applause and welcome him to the stage for a story called The Only Thing I Lost Was a Leg. Welcome, Dale Johnson.
Good evening. There are 185,000 amputations performed in this country every single year. That's not quite the combined populations of Bellevue, Fremont, Kearney, and Grand Island combined. It's 500 amputations every day. It's 21 amputations every hour. It's one amputation every 3.5 minutes. My amputation was in 2016. First day of spring, March 20th. It was an absolutely beautiful day. Beautiful first day of spring. Perfect day to hop on the motorcycle that I had just recently purchased and head to the grocery store for a packet of pomegranate seeds that seemed to make sense on a salad on the first day of spring. So I put on my leather jacket and I strap on my helmet and I find a tree-lined exit out of the neighborhood. So did a 16-year-old who didn't see me, turns his 2-ton car into my 10-pound leg. I managed to keep the bike up until I couldn't, hit the curb, flew 20 feet over the handlebars, landed on soft green grass between the street and the sidewalk. First paramedic on the scene orders that a tourniquet be placed tightly around my mangled left leg. He told me later that had that not happened, or had the emergency crew been delayed in traffic, I likely would have bled out in 3 minutes on that green grass between the street and the sidewalk. 3 minutes is about how long it takes you to unload the dishwasher. 3 minutes is about how long it takes you to fill your empty car with gas. Doctors gave me a 7% chance of surviving that motorcycle crash. But I did, thanks to 23 units of blood products from very generous blood donors at the Lincoln Community Blood Bank. Your body holds 11 units of blood. I needed 23 units of blood products. Came out of my coma on the second day in ICU, opened my eyes to see the shape of my legs under the bleached white, tucked tight sheets of my hospital bed. My beautiful wife is at the end of the bed. I look into that lovely face, and she's nodding her head. I've noticed that my left leg is shorter than my right. I looked down at that leg, and we began to cry. We cried hard. We cried necessary tears because we both knew we had work to do. And it started by calling the intensive care nurses into my room And I said, you have to find a way to get me out of this bed. I want to learn to walk. It's time to learn to walk. And I'm bored. So do what you can. And they brought in this device, a structured device that a patient steps into, and they safely then lean against some supports and they roll around the intensive care unit. What I didn't realize, no one realized, is that I'd also broken my left shoulder. So I limped it down to my side, put up one good arm and one good leg, and we hopped a lap around the intensive care unit. In ICU 3 days, in the hospital 11 days. 3 months after the crash, first day of spring to the first day of summer, I don't have a leg yet, but I'm back to work behind the microphone of KFOR. Fast forward some more to September. So from the first day of spring in March to early September, I'm ascending one of the 7 wonders of the world, Machu Picchu, in Peru, and other Inca ruins in Peru on a family trip that we had planned long before the crash. It was an amazing trip. It was a life-changing trip, an inspirational trip, so much so that when we got back to Lincoln, my wife Kimberly and I decided to contact the 16-year-old who hit me and his parents and asked if they would meet us at a coffee shop in South Lincoln. And they did. We got there early. We recognized them the moment they walked in, sat down at the table, and it was awkward. Because in my mind, I had conjured up this story. I'd fabricated this story of the young man who knew I was alive because I was in the news constantly, newspaper, television, radio. I had a TV crew in the hospital room while I was there. I had a couple of reporters over at the house for progress updates on my condition. So he knew I was alive. I couldn't have been more wrong. I thought maybe he was thinking of prom. School was going to be getting out in a couple of months. Thought his mind was there. But again, I couldn't be more wrong. The parents told us for every day I was in the hospital, there was a police car sitting in front of their house on the street with a police officer. And they found out the reason is because had I not survived that crash, their son would have been charged with a very serious crime. They also got rid of the car. The young man didn't go back to school right away, but when he did, he had a troubled time. He had a tough time. There was a pause in the conversation, and I leaned, looking at the young man, and I said, "You hit the right guy. You hit the right guy. I'm here. The only thing I lost was a leg. I'm back to work. I've traveled. You didn't do this on purpose. You didn't set out to do this. It was an accident. We forgive you. I forgive you." And those 3 words, you could tell, lifted the 6 months worth of guilt that they had, and it disappeared with those 3 words. I forgive you. I have 3 other words on the inside tattooed to my wrist. They say, do not settle. Those words came from a conversation I had with Bob Kerrey, former governor, former U.S. Senator, Navy SEAL, lost a portion of his lower limb in the Vietnam War. He said, the journey you're about to go on, there will be well-meaning people, well-intending people, prosthetists, physical therapists, that will imply that this is as good as your life's going to be. This is as good as your socket's going to fit. This is as good as your gait is going to be, your walk. This is as good as your life is going to be. But my wife and I, we do not settle. So 2025 has become the year of osseointegration. Osseointegration is osseo meaning bone, integration meaning stable, sturdy. And what you do, this replaces a socket system, and it's much easier this, generally speaking. Yeah. That took me about 9 or 10 seconds. With the socket system, it takes 15 to 20 minutes before you can stand up and walk away. But I'm here tonight thanks to skilled surgeons, a wonderful wife of 21 years, good friends, both personally and professionally, and I'm back to riding motorcycles. Been to Sturgis a couple of times. You heard about Canada. Glad you're here, Dave. And I'm here because of 3 words. We do not settle. Thank you very much.
Let's hear it. Give a big old round of applause for Dale Johnson. Oh, can we give one more round of applause? My goodness. I ran out of my tissues. I don't know about you. We need to make a note for next year. We need tissues available in the back. That would be awesome. Our next storyteller is Tamsin Butler. Tamsin is an award-winning author and military veteran, a TEDx speaker, and a contributing writer to Omaha Magazine, as well as mother to 2 ridiculously clever adult children. She's a leader in the Omaha chapter of Team RWB, a veterans wellness organization, and is also an advocate for heart health. Here's the fun fact. When Tamsin was a child, she actually appeared on the famous TV show Romper Room. Does anyone remember Romper Room? Yeah. If you're a little too young, Romper Room was an incredibly popular American children's TV series that targeted preschoolers. Obviously, this is not a preschooler right now, but she is here to tell her story, a woman of a certain rank. Let's hear it for Tamsin Butler.
It's okay. I know what you see when you look at me. A Midwestern mom, an empty nester maybe, a woman of a certain age. Now, I haven't always been a woman of a certain age. Let me take you back years ago to a hot summer day right before my 2 kids started middle school. In a sentimental impulse, I asked them if they would indulge me in a day at the zoo, just me and them, just like we used to do when they were toddlers. To my surprise, they agreed. We had a fantastic day, soaking in the sun before summer break just dwindled away. Now picture us on the Skyfari ride. You know, the one at the Henry Dorley Zoo? It's kind of like a ski lift where you're gliding through the sky, riding in a bench with your legs dangling beneath you. When you get to the end of it, there's an attendant there waiting to help you exit. As we approach the attendant, he looks at me, points at my hat, and says, "Is your husband in the military?" Friends, my hat didn't say, "My husband is in the military." It didn't even say military family. It said Air Force veteran. That's it. Now, in this gentleman's defense, I did bring my breast to the zoo with me that day. I bring them with me everywhere. Here's the thing, though. This wasn't the first time that somebody had assumed that my only connection to the military was through my husband. The difference here was that it happened in front of my kids. And if you're a parent, you know that you desperately want to be cool in front of your kids. Like this one time at Cabela's, which is a sporting goods store that has a fun little laser shooting gallery in the back. I took my kids there once when they were little, and they were stunned and delighted that I could hit every target they pointed at. Truth be told, I think it's the first time they really started to believe that I had served our country. In that moment, they were proud of me. And that's what I wanted in this moment, too. It would have been great for my kids to witness somebody thanking me for my service, showing that gratitude to those who served is always appreciated. Instead, I got the zoo guy. For the record, my husband did serve. It's how we met. In fact, for the briefest moment in time, I actually outranked him. But not for long, though. He had a much longer and much more distinguished military career than I did. Now, he's been married to me for a long time, and he's seen what I go through, so he knows all about advocating for women veterans. Last year, a veterans group that my husband and I belong to attended a nonprofit banquet where our group was asked to stand as they recognized us for our service. Afterward, a man came rushing over, nudged past my friend Robin and I to make a beeline for my husband to thank him for his service. My husband, such a gentleman, he said, "Thanks, but these women are veterans too." And the man kind of sheepishly turned toward us and thanked us for our service. Okay, back to the zoo. That day at the zoo, I was not wearing the hat to get any sort of recognition. I was just wearing it to keep the sun off my face. I promise you, I was not strutting around the zoo saying, you're welcome for my service, civilians. Still, if your first thought when you see a woman wearing an Air Force veteran hat is that she must be wearing her husband's hat, honey, I have news for you. There are more than 2 million women veterans in the United States. And while it's true that nowadays I probably look much more likely to demand to speak to a manager than I do to assemble and shoot an M16 rifle, that doesn't erase my service. I'm an Armed Forces Service Medal veteran, and I'm very proud of that fact. Had my husband been wearing that hat, and I've seen this a million times, I know exactly what would have happened. They would have said, "Oh, thanks for your service, sir," and he would have went about his day. But me, I got an assumption. And then I got to explain to my kids why it stung, because there really wasn't any hiding my reaction from these two kids who knew me so well. If I remember right, I think I did manage to mumble something to the attendant about how I had served, but I'm not so sure that I did, because I was kind of taken aback in the moment. It's not that I need recognition for my service, but what I don't need is my service disregarded based solely on my gender. Why, thank you. Now, I don't know about you, but I have a tendency to think of the perfect response to a conversation long after it's already ended. So much later, I thought of the perfect response to Zoo Guy asking me if my husband had served. Here's what I should have done. I should have looked him up and down, surveying his zoo uniform, and I should have said, "Oh, does your wife work at the zoo?" One more thing. To my fellow military veterans of any and all genders, if you're here tonight, would you please raise your hand if you don't mind? Thank you for your service. I see you, I appreciate you, and I tip my Air Force veteran hat to you. Thank you.
Let's hear it one more time for Tamsin Butler. You beat me to it. I was like, you know what? Yeah, let's have the veterans stand up. That would be great. And you're like, yes, raise your hand. But can the veterans actually stand real quick so that we can see you eye to eye? Let's give a round of applause to our veterans in the room. Your stories matter. Your stories have helped us be here today. Thank you so much. Our next storyteller is Barb Biffle. A Lincolnite since 1981, Barb's career spanned communications work as well as administrative roles in state government. Barb is an accomplished musician, radio host, volunteer for a Greyhound adoption group, and a storyteller who blends music, history, and wit. Barb tells us, fun fact, that while still in high school, she used her artistic skills with Elmer's glue and colored pencils to successfully camouflage a 12-inch tear in newly textured wallpaper in her parents' home. And apparently, mom and dad never realized the wallpaper was torn until she confessed 10 years later and was never punished. Let's welcome Barb Biffle to the stage with her story, Persistence.
I am not a perfectionist. In no way am I a perfectionist, but I do like to make specific plans for special occasions, and I like to know what's going on in my day, my week, my month. Now, I don't like surprises, but I am an animal lover, and I have multiple pets in my household. In fact, since the age of 12, I have had an unbroken line of pets, one knowing the next one, knowing the next one, knowing the next one. And because I like to put things in order, I call this the apostolic succession of pets. I've had a lot of pets. Now, you may think, why is this person who likes to put things in order having pets? Well, those two don't really go together, do they? I mean, if you have a pet, you know that a lot of the time you're flying by the seat of your pants, aren't you? You never know what they're going to do. And it's hard to reconcile those two parts of my personality. But luckily, I found a wonderful guru named Tom Petty. Tom Petty has this mantra that I have taken as my own. He said, most things I worry about never happen anyway. Now, I thought that I worry too much, so I need to take that mantra to myself. And I thought, but I can take it a step further because I'm Barb. So I'll take it a step further. When I worry about things, and I know I shouldn't, I will take that to the nth degree and figure out what I could do to make that not happen. Should something accidentally happen, you've done it, haven't you? And then I'll be ready for anything. But I know it'll never happen, but if it does, I will be ready. I'll be there. So let me take you to a time in my life when I was single, and I had my own house, and I had 4 ex-racing greyhounds, which are better known as 40-mile-an-hour couch potatoes. I had adopted them separately, but I ended up with 4, and I had 4 cats. Now, the cats came to me through the universal cat distribution system. You know how this works, don't you? Yeah. You don't know you need a cat, but the system knows you need a cat. So a cat comes to you, and that's how I got all of them, especially the last one in the group at my house at that time. His name was Buddy. I'd been working in the backyard one day, and I heard something at the corner of the yard. Now, I had a secluded yard. It had a 6-foot privacy fence all the way around it, and things just didn't come in my yard. But I heard something. I looked back. There was this soft gray cat sitting at the back of the yard. And I said, hey, little buddy, what are you doing? And he ran right up to me and started rubbing on my legs. And he obviously had a plan that I wasn't aware of at the time. Buddy had it in his mind, and maybe he'd been watching me, maybe I'd been being surveilled, but he obviously had decided he was going to be my cat. He'd probably seen the dogs out in the yard, and he wanted to be part of my household. Now, I'm kind of stupid because it took me 2 weeks to realize that. He showed up every morning. He was there at noon when I came home to let the dogs out. He was there in the evening when I came home. On the second day, I started feeding him. Is that a mistake? He ate the food. He got along with the dogs. I let them out one by one. They would live with cats. They were the best of friends. And after 2 weeks, and I even checked with the neighbors to see if he belonged to anybody, I was doing my due diligence, he came and showed up with a cut on his leg. And it was pretty bad. And I didn't feel I could handle it, so I took him to the vet. And as I paid the bill happily, I put him in the crate to take home. I decided he would become an inside cat. Now, he was perfectly happy. He looked at me as if to say, that's what I had in mind all along. What took you so long? So Buddy became my solid, soft gray inside cat. He became the Joel Grey of my cabaret, only without the evil part, okay? But he greeted everyone who came through the door. He played with the cats. He slept with the dogs. He just enjoyed everything. He never tried to get out again. And all of us were happy. Now, on the night of this particular adventure, I'd come home from work. I always located all the animals because cats have a tendency to hide. I had let the dogs out and let them back in. It was about this time of year, so it got dark out, about 7 o'clock. Just pretty darn dark. But it was nice out, like the weather we've been having. So when the dogs wanted out a little after 7, I decided to go out with them. I opened the door wide and let the dogs all out. Now, my backyard had one tree and a brush pile I was working on. So I decided, this is a beautiful evening. I'm going to sit here and enjoy this with the animals. Darkness was falling. I'd flipped on the patio light, but it didn't extend too far into the yard. All of a sudden, I saw one of the greyhounds alert to the brush pile. It ran over and started wagging its tail. The other 3 spotted it and ran over and started circling the brush pile and wagging its tail. And I thought, what on earth is going on here? So I got up from my chair. I started to walk over to the brush pile, and out of that pile, a dark shape flew clear to the tree and climbed that tree. Now, I'd had a drink or two. But I did realize quickly that it wasn't a squirrel because squirrels weren't out. It wasn't a bunny rabbit because bunny rabbits don't climb trees. It must be a cat. And I thought, what the heck is going on? So I ran quickly to the tree to make sure it was all right, keeping an eye on the dogs the whole time because I didn't want them to trample each other. I knew they liked cats, but this wasn't their cat, right? So I ran to the tree, and about that time, the cat fell out of the tree with a plop and ran to the fence and tried to get over the fence. And I ran to the fence ahead of the dogs. I grabbed the cat, looking at the dogs, and dropped the cat on the other side of the fence. Crisis averted. So I started to gather myself up and go back in the house when I heard something by the fence. I looked over, and there were these 2 paws clinging to the top of the fence. And I thought, what is going on? So I ran over to the fence again ahead of the dogs, and I grabbed those 2 paws and gently pushed them over the back of the fence. And I turned to go back inside again thinking, oh, I am so good. I averted this situation entirely. About that time, I heard something again. I looked over, and Kilroy was coming over the top of the fence. 2 ears, 2 paws in the darkness, and I couldn't believe it. I thought, how dumb is this feline? What is wrong with this cat? So I ran to the fence again. The dogs were following me. And just as I got to the fence, I stared at that cat. And the eyes that stared at me were genuinely pissed. If looks could kill, I would be dead right now. That was Buddy the cat. He had gotten out somehow during that first time when I let the dogs out. He'd been roaming around the backyard. And now I had tried to put him out of my yard, and he'd been trying his whole life to get in my yard. So I was apologizing to him, and he never broke his stare on me. It was just daggers coming at me. I picked him up off the top of the fence, and as I tucked him under my arm, and I think the dogs knew it was Buddy, I tucked him under my arm and went to the house. He peed all over me. Cats have a way of showing their disdain. The evening ended just fine. I mean, we got him in, we got cleaned up, I got cleaned up, everybody was asleep later on, and the whole thing ended so well. And I think about that now. That was several years ago. All of the main characters in this story have passed on. I know. But Buddy is buried at our house, right by the bird bath, and the dog's ashes are scattered at our house. And sometimes, with this apostolic succession of pets that I have in my mind, I like to sit there with my beer, and I think, when I die, I want all of my pets there. They're just there saying, what a wonderful person you were, Barb. You took such good care of us. We love you so much, and we know you love us, and I'm basking in the glory of that. And then all of a sudden from the back, one little gray paw goes up and says, let me tell you the story. Thank you.
I'm sorry. You know how you soak in a story. I'm trying to, the apostolic, what now? And then, yeah, everybody's got a different version, I see. That's great. And then the universal cat, look, okay, I'm gonna meet with you afterwards because I need to know all of these. Big thank you to Barb. Coming next to the stage is Jenna Lambert. Woo, 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 woo. Jenna is a nonprofit professional storyteller and single mom who is always collecting moments worth retelling. Whether she's navigating the wild world of fundraising or even the wilder world of dating. She lives in Lincoln with her teenage daughter and her mischievous kitten. Fun fact, can we get a drum roll, please? Is that okay? Jenna was crowned Apple Butter Festival Princess when she was in kindergarten, but here she is tonight without the tiara. Welcome Jenna and her story, Worst Date Ever.
Picture it, Bloomington, Indiana, 2006. I'm a 20-year-old college student sharing an apartment with a girl I met at church. It's the dawn of internet dating, and I found myself on a website called OkCupid. It matches users based on a series of questionnaires, and I have a personal rule. I'll only chat with someone if they're at least an 80% match. So I find myself chatting with this young, attractive guy, and he's studying some kind of science at Purdue University, 2 hours north of Indiana University, where I'm at. He offers to take me out to dinner, and on the night he arrives, on the evening that we agreed to, he arrives, knocks at the door, introduces himself, and immediately asks if I have any eggs in my refrigerator. He explains that he wants to test if we'll make a good team. An egg toss, out in the parking lot. We only make it a few rounds before he tosses one a bit too hard, and the egg breaks down the front of the outfit I'd spent hours deciding on. After I change, he tells me that he rode his motorcycle, built for one, so we'll need to take my car. He insists on driving because he's the man. Yeah. But the thing about this car is that I have to crawl over the console to get into the passenger side seat because the door on one side doesn't open. And I worked 3 jobs to afford that car, and he makes fun of the car the entire ride to the restaurant that he chose. So at the restaurant, we're seated at the bar, and he orders 2 alcoholic drinks and beef nachos, not considering that I'm a 20-year-old vegetarian at the time. On the way to my car, he stops at a shop and buys a bottle of champagne and convinces me it'll be romantic to watch the sunset in a park. Surprisingly, the conversation is engaging enough that I don't totally realize where we're going until we're on a gravel road, lined with houses on one side, trees on the other. He pulls over and says, "This looks like a nice spot," gets out of the car, taking my keys and the bottle of champagne with him. I follow him a short distance into the woods to a clearing where there's some stumps near a stream. We sit and chat, and he opens the bottle of champagne, drinks most of it down, and then just as it's getting dark, he stands up and announces, "It's time to go." So we walk back to my car there on the side of the road, and that's about the time that he pats himself down and says, "I've lost the keys." We're really panicking now, and we dig through my car looking for a flashlight, but instead he finds some papers, which he fashions into a torch and lights on fire. He doesn't make it far before he realizes it's not really adequate lighting and throws the papers down on the side of the road. This is in the days before Uber, so we decide amongst ourselves that the only way out of this situation is to hitchhike back to my apartment. So, as the first car approaches, he runs out of the road, wildly waving his arms, causing the car to swerve around him. And This is when I finally decide to take some initiative in this story. I wave down the next vehicle, a minivan with a family inside. I explain our dire situation, and they reluctantly agree to let us into the car. So we also, in the days before Google Maps, we navigate back to my apartment using landmarks. And when we arrive at my apartment, he reminds me that he's drunk that entire bottle of champagne, and he begs to sleep it off on my sofa before his 2-hour motorcycle ride home in the dark. I discuss it with my roommate, and she goes upstairs to lock herself in her bedroom, while I provide a blanket and a pillow to him. The next morning, he's gone before I wake, never to be seen or heard from again. But I still have to find my keys. Luckily, my memory of the landmarks the night before serves me well enough that I'm able to walk my way back to that dusty gravel road where I find my car on the shoulder, and in the clearing by the stumps near the stream, I find my keys. Along with that empty bottle of champagne, of course. But the bit I didn't tell you, the part that sometimes I wonder if I dreamt it up to explain the insanity of the evening, is that just before I went to turn off the lights in the living room the night before, he stopped me, thanked me for being so sweet, and said I deserved to know the truth. He was a member of a group of frat guys who competed to take girls out on the worst date ever. Just for the story.
Wow. Can we just get another round of applause? I really feel like you could adapt that into a movie series, right? Worst Date Ever could totally be an entire movie series. Our last storyteller of the evening is Juan Paez. Y'all know Juan? Cool. A lifelong Lincoln resident, Juan now manages youth programs at The Bay in Lincoln. He's passionate about his hometown, about recreational sports, traveling, exploring real estate listings, cheering on the Huskers, and his 2-year-old daughter. Fun fact about Juan, growing up, he actually wanted to be a meteorologist and continues to be obsessed over all the weather stuff going on. Tornadoes, earthquakes, hurricanes. So every week, Juan checks something called the local drought monitor. And he wants you all to know, tonight, this is the fun fact, as of today, Lancaster County is drought-free. Thanks for telling us, Juan. Let's welcome him to the stage with a story called Through Her Little Eyes.
Boom, boom. A group of sailors were on a boat just moments before in steady water. But a storm came out of nowhere with the waves crashing against the boat, the wind rocking the boat, the captain in the front looking back at the crew and saying, hang on tight. One of the crew members looks up and goes, sir, look. And as the clouds part, the fog goes away. 2 massive cliffs right in front of them create a narrow gap. We're not gonna make it. We're not gonna make it. That boat was a stick, and those cliffs were 2 leaves that 8-year-old Juan had positioned perfectly to make a narrow gap. And it was after a Midwest rainstorm had just gone, and the stick was floating down the cul-de-sac where I lived. I had a big imagination as a kid. I loved the outdoors, and I loved weather. I remember looking out the window as the snow would fall, and I would think, is there a Whoville in every flake? Is there a Grinch in every flake? Do they know each other? Am I in their outer space? The home I grew up in had great vantage point. It was on a little hill in Lincoln, and you could see thunderstorms come in from a while away. And as the first crack of thunder shook the house, I would rush to the window and look, where was it coming from? And as it would get closer, the wind would stir, and I could hear my mother's wind chimes in the backyard making a chaotic yet comforting chorus. I remember dancing with fireflies in my backyard, giggling as their little butts lit up, and trying to catch them in my mason jar, which I would release, mostly. The first house I grew up in was right alongside a railroad track. I think I could throw a rock from my window. And I remember my dad taking my sister and I in a bike, and we were in the back little buggy, and the wind would be blowing in my face, and I would be looking at the stalled trains, and I'd wonder, who did that art? How did that get there? Those are so cool. I would lie awake in bed listening to a train horn come in, and I would think, where are they coming from? Where are they going? Are there people in there? The memories I just told, I can recollect very easily. I can be immersed in it very easily present day. But before June 1st, 2023, it would have taken a lot more brain power to get there. For those who know me, I am an optimist to my core, not in a toxic positivity way. I can read a room, but in a way that I know and believe everything can be okay. But the extraordinary soon became mundane. I'm a full-blown adult now, been one for a while. I had the taste of the successful career. I've traveled many places. A plane was once this wonderful object in the sky like a shooting star, now something I've been on hundreds of times. Fireflies no longer dance, they were shooed away with flies and mosquitoes. Trains were no longer cool. They were something I would curse at when I was stuck on my way to work. June 1st, 2023, the best day. That's the day my wife and I welcomed into the most beautiful baby girl, Camila Louise, affectionately known as Mila Lou. I was not prepared for the amount of joy I would receive watching her witness the world around her. Before she could even speak words, she was enamored by squirrels, loved squirrels, one of her first words she spoke. In our neighborhood, we have a lot of damn squirrels. They would go up the trees. And watching Mila through her eyes, squirrels were just like us. Squirrels go night-night? Yes, sweetheart, they do. Squirrels eat lunch? Yes, sweetheart, you can eat your lunch now. She was obsessed with squirrels. And then it moved on to butterflies and bumblebees and bunnies in the gardens, who, of course, the bunnies would have the squirrels over for dinner all the time. I'm not sure if you're aware of this, but there's a very large mountain in the middle of our city. It's off of 27th Street, right next to the Children's Zoo. Oh, fountain? No. In our house, it's called the Mountain. And we pass by this mountain every single day on the way to daycare and every single way back home. And we always say hello to the mountain, no matter the elements or the weather outside. Good morning, mountain. See you later. Window down. Hi, mountain. Night-night. See you later. I remember the first time we went to the mountain, up close and personal. It had a distinct aroma. One of the spring days, the wind was gushing like it does, and I was smacked with that aroma, and it put me straight back into the late 90s, early 2000s at Colby Ridge Popcorn in downtown Lincoln. Whatever chemical they use, they're still using it. Little Juan would watch the popcorn go down the waterways, and all of a sudden, so many memories were flooded to my brain. I snapped back to reality, and I looked down at my daughter, and I watched her being enamored by this giant object shooting out water, and I saw little Juan doing the same. Our most recent trip to the mountain we were walking up, and on the ground were 2 perfect sticks. It was just Mila and I. And I bent down. Mila, look. Stick? Yes, but what if it's a boat? Boat? And I dropped it into the water, the pool with the gushing water going up and down, and I said, Mila, do you think there's people on the boat? Yeah. I put in the other stick. Look it. Do you think they know each other? Yeah. And then she points out, Pink Pony. Pink Pony is her favorite song currently, but it was a pink pedal. Yes, Mila. Pink Island? Yeah. And so we sat there watching 2 sticks go towards the pink island. And I just stared at her, eyes wide, discovering a world that I had once discovered. There's a scene in Toy Story 3 where the main character, Andy, who we have watched throughout the last 3 movies, he grows up and he's going off to college. But before he does, he takes his box of his most prized toys and he drops it off to a neighborhood kid. And while he drops it off, he's telling this little girl all about these toys and the stories that could become. I see myself as Andy, and I'm giving a box to my little Mila Lou, not of toys, but of wonder, imagination, love, and hope. Andy had to go off to college. I'm not sure if he knew what became of those toys or the stories that would be made. But I don't have to go off to college. I get to stay right here, right with my Mila Lou and my wife, and we get to create our own worlds, and I get to watch her discover hers. Thank you.
Let's get another round of applause for Juan Paez. So this here is going to be a separate round of applause for every single one of our storytellers that got on this stage tonight. Let's put our hands together for them. Phenomenal work. Oh my gosh, did you love those stories? Put those hands together.